Good morning, everybody. Today's chat is about performance management. One of my favorite topics because now it comes to how we've set expectations and now how we measure them and monitor them and keep ourselves and our people on track. So I want you to, before I start this morning, what I'd like you to do is think about this happens every day, the miscommunication of expectations. I want you to think about a time where you've had an argument with someone where you thought something's one way and they've thought something's another way. For example, a while ago, I'd asked my husband, can you get the details of the wedding that we're going to? It was 3 weeks before the wedding. And he said, yeah, no worries, don't worry, I'll look into it. I'll find it. I could have easily reached out to someone else, but I'd asked my husband thinking, oh, he might know, and he didn't, but he said he'd find out for me. And then it came to the week before the wedding and I said, hey, have you got those details about the invite? And he said, no, but I'll get them. And so I waited the next week. And then I said to him, I really need the details. I've got to contact the babysitter. And he's like, oh, he goes, I didn't realize that's why you needed them. Why didn't you just explain that to me? And I said, I didn't think I had to. I just asked you and assumed that something would get done. I eventually got the invite. We went to the wedding. The babysitter was fine. Everything was booked. But that little interaction in communication is such a frequent occurrence in life, let alone at work. So it happens a lot at work too. So performance management is about understanding what people need and how to support them in achieving their goals at work so that everybody can work together the same goals. So clearly communicating that is one thing. I do recall having a session with a manager who had called me on for some advice and said, I've got someone who's underperforming. I just don't know what to do. And I said, well, have you told them that? Oh, they should just know the writing's on the wall. I'm constantly on their back. And then when they actually sat down and had a conversation, this young gentleman had actually no idea that he wasn't performing to the standard that he was required because no one had actually said that to him. So never assume that people understand the requirements of the job. It's really important to lay that out, especially I find just straight from uni, not everybody has that work experience, to be able to do that. So what is managing performance? When does performance management start? It starts at the beginning of employment by setting our expectations and using reward and success. We develop and we keep high performance or potential as well as dealing with performance issues. So performance doesn't necessarily mean you're doing a bad job and therefore now I need to performance manage you. Performance management also occurs when you see someone high achieving all the time. How do I then keep them engaged? How do I retain them? So it's really important to know that performance management isn't just for those people who are not performing. Performance management is about looking at things as a whole and understanding and saying, hey, you know what? If someone is just doing their job and doing their job well, then great. That's okay. Not everybody needs to be that star achiever. They are their own star in their own right. So I want everybody to remember that. That's really important when we're understanding the diverse range of performance management topics that can come up. So employees need a clear understanding of what's expected of them at work, but also how it contributes to the organisation. Previously, we talked about culture, understanding roles, and how those roles contribute to the overall organisation. Making someone feel a part of something. As human beings, we are innately wanting to connect with other human beings, but to be a part of something. Nobody wants to be on their own all the time. We're a very few minority of people do want to be on their own. But I'm saying, we're born into a society that, had a village to raise a child, that, encourages the congregation of humans. it's a society. It's what we do. There are, little communities within each community. And that's also true of an organization. It's just an organized community, right? So it's an organized bunch of people working towards the same goal, and it's structured. It shouldn't be so vague. So, we all want to contribute to be a part of that community. And if we don't feel a part of that community, or if we don't share the values of that community, it's not going to be a success. So an important part of a manager's job is working with the employees to make sure they understand what they need to do, how they need to do it, and when they need to do it. Understanding and, where possible, agreeing to expectations should happen as a part of the employee's induction, or at least within a few weeks of starting the job. So it's important to have these in place when the employee will be assessed against their role. Now note, this is also why people use personality profiling tools like DISC or MBTI, or there's a bunch of others out there. That's also really important, that we make sure that they're assessed for that role. So we do that as a part of pre-onboarding, and you can use those tools to assist with that. Really, really important. Having conversations. Now, how often do you think we should have a conversation about this stuff? How often should we be conversing about our performance? We do it in general day-to-day interactions, and hopefully you're offering feedback when something comes back to you. For example, if I've received something and it wasn't quite what I asked for, I look at it and I say, okay, that wasn't quite right, and I'll send that back or sit that person down and say, look, thank you for that. What I actually meant was this. Perhaps I didn't communicate that well enough. Next time, could you just take a look at that, make sure that you've put it through. So we do those interactions daily. However, it's really important that we sit down and we have a one-to-one conversation. A lot of HRIS tools now have the one-to-one built into their system. So you can actually set up recurring one-to-ones, and you can, make sure that it's communicated beforehand, and we can actually fill in the information afterwards and complete the one-to-one. And then, everybody's on the same page of what we talked about. So one-to-ones are really important because they are a key component of successful ongoing feedback model. We don't want to wait these days. Nobody wants to wait till the annual performance review and say, here's how you're going. It's not successful. If you get into a performance review and it's an annual performance review and you have not been able to have any feedback through all of that process, and you then try and say to someone, hey, I'm sorry, you're performing really poorly, and they walk in and think they're doing really well, there's something going wrong, because there should be no surprises in a workplace. And that's why we talk about really clear expectations. I mean, sitting on the other side of that and having that conversation a year later about how I'm performing is not great. The annual review should be a part of the ongoing conversation that we've had. So this ongoing feedback model gives managers and their direct reports uninterrupted time to discuss projects, to review performance, to remove blockers, and more. What's going on for you? I've noticed you haven't been looking, or I've noticed that you're not as bubbly as you usually are. Is everything okay? It also provides an opportunity for managers to get to know them on a more personal level. So these meetings allow for managers and employees to discuss career aspirations, interest, professional growth opportunities, and it's an important way to engage employees and invest in their long-term happiness in your company. We talked about in our talent retention strategies and recruitment strategies that if you've got this kind of ongoing feedback going on continually and you're able to put things in place to support that, this is another way to support that conversation, rather than having that one big meeting and then trying to capture everything in one big meeting or two big meetings throughout the year. Those meetings then become some summary meetings and planning meetings for the one-to-one conversations you've been having throughout the year. So The benefits of the one-to-ones, they improve performance, they drive development. Because they are more frequent, you're able to act on things quicker. They build trust. I don't know if you've been reading, you know, any of Brené Brown's leadership books. They are amazing. Great teams are built on trust. They increase our team's agility. So when you're talking to people flexibly, talking to people frequently about things, they're able to be more agile because you're providing them with ongoing feedback as to the pulse of where their business is heading and how they're performing in that. So it's not just about their role, it's about the communication that you can provide and say, well, actually, you know, the business is now heading in this direction, and, you know, this is what we're going to look at changing over the next, you know, 6 to 12 months. What do you think about that? You know, it offers them a platform to be able to put an opinion in, to have their say. And that's really important also for culture building. So how often do we have these? How long is a piece of string? Okay, I know people with big teams often find this quite challenging, but best practice for these types of conversations, these one-to-ones, are every 2 weeks for 30 minutes to an hour. I used to set up one-to-ones with my team members every week. And I had a long list of, what wasn't a long list, it was kind of, you know, what are we working on? How can I help you prioritize? You know, for those that needed that. And for others, it was a very short conversation with a few key topics that we needed to go over, but they were pre-planned. I had the same, you know, the same ongoing conversation, and they were documented. They're the keys to making sure that we keep these conversations moving well, is that they're thought out, they're planned, they're time relevant. So if you're doing them every 2 weeks, there's 2 weeks worth of work. How are you going with that project? You know, what's going on with that? How can I support you? What are the roadblockers? You know, so how can I help you remove them? What do we need to do to get you more traction in that space? It's really important. Those conversations become really important to helping teams move through things and dealing with issues before they arise. What we can do is part of another benefit of these one-to-ones is really important. Encouraging values-led behaviors. So what behaviors are driving your values? We talked a little bit about culture in the previous topic. Culture is a set of values-led behaviors. So it's the behaviors that drive the outcomes to achieve the values of the business, right? So, you know, if you've got an example of accountability, respect, and teamwork as part of your values system, then identify the behaviors that form those values. So if I'm accountable, I'm not going to be hiding things. When I've made a mistake, I'll own up. I don't need to be followed up on tasks. I don't need to. So all of these sorts of behaviors. One-to-ones is a perfect opportunity for you to be able to then say, okay, you know what? You're not actually. Oh my gosh, my phone's going. I'm sorry. My phone's trying to pick up something that I'm saying. So it's important that you understand the behaviors that lead to your values, the values-led behaviors of the organization, and have those conversations about that. It guides people in the right direction. It's not about a harsh correction. It's about saying, hey, it's about giving the opportunity to have a conversation about how people are going, how you think they're going, and to kind of give them a gentle nudge back into where they need to be, praise them for where they are going. You know, everyone loves to hear a thank you, or you've done really well here, because psychologically, we want to do it again. right? Most people will be like, oh, okay, great, thanks. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing well. Now I know how to achieve that again. So as I mentioned, one-to-ones provide the opportunity to correct performance. If they're not doing their job in line with the expectations, then it becomes, a performance issue. And, we want to be able to guide people in their roles. That's our jobs as managers more than anything else, is guiding people in performing in their roles, but setting the scene to support them to support them to success. So, as having those one-to-ones is absolutely key to that success plan. It's absolutely key to making sure that your team is on the same page and understands exactly what they need to do to achieve. I really hope you found this session interesting and useful, and I look forward to bringing the next few sessions to you shortly. So enjoy, have fun. Managing shouldn't be hard. It really should be fun. And, people don't go to work to fail. They don't go to work for poor performance. It's just something's not quite right. Something's gone quite wrong. So having these set up, established, documented one-to-one conversations allows for the conversation to move in a more supportive direction. So thank you very much for today. Keep an eye out. There'll be a few more coming up. So have a lovely week.